Welcome, everyone, inside the ProBox TV studio for our boxing scene today. Very special edition, May 10th. Big showdown right here on ProBox TV from Kissimmee, Florida. A main event that may be a crossroads redemption kind of fight. Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, plus a special guest. That main event, Erickson Lubin, right next to me, taking on Ardriel Holmes Jr. He's 17-0, undefeated, that up-and-coming kid. Erickson, thanks for joining us. It's one of those things where a lot of times you don't know a crossroads fight is a crossroads fight until it's over. And you look back and you go, man, that was a fight that really changed that person's career. This is one of those, man, that it looks like one now. Like we're not there yet, but it's one of those fights where your career needs to get over that big step to get to better things. Is that how it feels right now?
Yeah, it does. It feels important. Feels very important. You know, I got a young undefeated guy. I don't mean young in age, but I mean young in experience. But he's undefeated and he's hungry, so he's definitely coming to fight. And I feel like this win is important to me because I'm coming off of a long layoff. I just beat an undefeated kid in Jesus Ramos, but you know, coming back into the ring, fighting another undefeated guy, it'll catapult me back to the title contention, and that's the main goal: just getting to the world title and becoming champion. So I feel like this is very important, and I'm taking it like that. I'm training like that, and May 10th it all show.
Erickson, obviously the undefeated record looks good to take a scalp of an undefeated record, but you're a guy who also has been around so long, who's been had a lot of attention paid to him through the years because you came out of the amateurs with a bang, and you've always been in the contention in the top 10 almost throughout your whole career. Any extra pressure for the fact that everything is under the microscope? Every performance that you have is different than a performance from a regular guy who's in a there are eliminators for world championships. This is an IBF eliminator that you got coming up. That two guys that may not be known. Somebody comes out of it and gets a title fight, and then they get their chance. Yeah. But you're different. You're an IBF eliminator, but you're a known entity. What the mindset to sort of be constantly under that microscope. Obviously it's pressure, but there's going to be the day come when it's all over when you're going to miss that. So how do you approach it in the present time?
I just approach it like I do every fight. Honestly, I'm always motivated. I'm a man of the sport, so every fight to me is important. Like this kid, he may not have the experience and he may not have been in the ring with the top guys, but he's hungry. So that keeps me motivated. That keeps me hungry. That keeps me always on my game, always on my A game. So I'm taking this like I do every fight. It's no different really.
You still love the sport?
Yeah, I still love it. I love it so much. I haven't reached my goal yet.
What is your goal?
To become world champion. That to me is important. I can't solidify my name into the Hall of Fame without winning a world title.
Or even your personal satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Erickson, we're speaking a lot about experience. We're talking about, the champ mentioned coming out of the amateurs with a bang, and some of that you've been there before. Let's take it back a little bit, all right? We're talking about your next fight with Ardriel Holmes, the IBF eliminator, big fight, something you're really motivated about. Man, we talk about that a lot. I want. So people who are listening in, they want to know more about you and your route. You're only 29 years old. You've been at this at the high level in the pros for like almost 10 years now. So take us back. What's your amateur pedigree look like? How was that coming into the pros? And as the champ alluded to, you had a lot of eyes on you throughout. Very different than most fighters. Me, nobody knew who I was until I had 15 fights. You came out of the amateurs, eyes on you. So tell us what that experience is like, where you came from, and how you got basically to here.
I'm from Orlando. The fight's in my hometown, so I'm excited about that. But I grew up in boxing. My brother was a boxer. He was a professional as well. And I was a main guy in the amateurs. Like coming up in the 2012, 2016 class, they looked at me like the one to win a gold medal for them. They haven't had a gold medal since Andre Ward in 2004. So they were looking at me like the guy that was going to do it for them. But I obviously went pro. You know, I opted out of the other.
What was the reason?
What drew you that? What was the allure that took you away from? Because I'm sure your goal also may have been an Olympic gold medal, right? When you're in the amateurs, that's that's sort of the pinnacle.
Yeah.
What pulled you away? What was the allure?
And
what
even
was
if
that
the gold medal,
decision?
even if the gold medal is not something that was on your mind, when you start hearing it, okay, well, that might be that's a good goal.
Yeah.
But so what pulled you away from that path?
It's my living situation, and then they took off the headgears in the amateurs. So when they took off the headgears,
You're like, man, I'm gonna risk getting caught. I might as well get
Yeah,
paid.
what's the point? Right.
yeah, I was like, I might as well get paid for this. And I went pro. I was like, you know, G-Man, Gary Jonas, he had something to offer me, and, you know, it looked real good. And it's, you know, I'm still with him, and it's still good, you know.
So obviously he had eyes on you during the amateurs.
Yeah. It's actually a funny story how we actually met.
Please.
I was at the Olympic Training Center. He had some of his
In Colorado?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he had some of his assistants come to the gym and watch us spar. And
Specifically to see you, or just they were checking?
I think they came to see me. I think they came to see me. now that I look back,
Little smile going on.
Yeah. Now that I
It's
look
coming
back,
together in your own mind right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sparring, and then the Olympic trainers, they were like, oh, those are pro scouts. They were telling us, like, those are pro scouts. You guys go introduce yourselves. So I went up to one of the guys. I was like, hey,
So
what's
that's
up,
a big
man?
change, bro. From when I was in the amateur, they
didn't allow those guys in the
I mean,
gym, right?
they were there, but they didn't tell you to go talk to them. They didn't want to keep you in the amateurs when I was there.
Yeah, I think they just wanted me to go meet him real quick. So I went over, I said what's up to him. And it wasn't G, it was someone else. And they were acting like they didn't know English. They were like, oh, no English. So I was like, it was quick. I was like, all right, bet. So then that Monday, we flew back to Florida, and they were like, oh, we're going to Miami. We're going to meet with some pro scouts. I was like, oh, cool. All right.
The same
so
guys?
then it was the same guy.
So now they spoke
They spoke
English?
English this time?
Huh?
They spoke English this time?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. He spoke English this time. I was like, yo, bro,
in the course of a weekend, they learned the language.
yeah. It was crazy. And then, you know, they drew something up. I was just around the pros, and I was hanging around those guys and sparring and stuff like that. And I just decided to go pro.
What has changed for you stylistically in your pro career? Meaning, a lot of people saw you real aggressive, real exciting fighter, young, but you know you start adding that defensive, and sometimes you get into a defensive mode. You got to win rounds, you got to win fights, but you lose some of that aggressive edge. Has there been an up and down to that in your career?
Not too much. You know, just being with different trainers and learning different styles. I think that played into it. I'm always an aggressive fighter. You know, I know how to, even when I'm being defensive, I could still, you know, go into a attack mode. I just feel like I know the game. I know the game. The hit, not get hit. You know, I could do that being aggressive, and I could do that on the back foot.
When you look at your losses, obviously Charlo, Fundora, two of the biggest names right now in boxing, period. What do you learn when you step up against competition like that? Be it a win or a loss, what do you take out of that you didn't have before?
With the Charlo fight, I feel like maybe with both fights, with both of my losses, I feel like I've learned a lot outside the ring. It was a lot to do with things that were going on outside the ring. And, you know, in the ring, you know, the Charlo fight was, you know, kind of too fast.
Yeah,
too fast to tell, too fast, you know, to see what was going to really happen.
Yeah, that fight didn't even get to unfold.
Yeah. And,
you know, there's fights where I sometimes watch them, and obviously it's from the outside looking in, and I look at it and I say, this is going to be an underratedly good fight on paper. It's like, wow, you know, you rarely, like back in the day, you got your Leonards and Hearns to fight young, you know. Yeah. I saw, and there's fights, and yours was one of them with Charlo, when I saw it on paper, and I was like, these are two young studs. Like, and I hate that boxing keeps two young studs away from each other. This is the way it's supposed to be, and you rarely get that anymore. Old school, you got it more often. Yeah. I couldn't wait for that fight. But there has been times when a fight like that, there's somebody getting caught early, and it just ruins a great fight. You know what I mean? Like, it just like, because now the rematch, nobody talks about it. All this, and your fight with Charlo is always one that I bring up. I bring up Peter Quillen and Danny Jacobs. And I also bring up one that did turn out to be a good fight, but almost ended in round one. It's Trinidad versus Fernando Vargas. And I remember thinking I'm watching that fight because that was the first one.
How
of
about
these.
Marquez and Pacquiao?
Marquez and Pacquiao as well, yes. And because I remember thinking when you first start seeing this, like, damn, this would have been such a good fight. Now it's going to be over in the first round, and nobody's going to demand it to happen again.
And one guy's going to shoot to the moon, and the other guy's got to start.
And it's like, and when it was over, I'm like, man, that's such a waste of a good fight. You know what I mean? Like, that would have evolved two high-level fighters. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just still sometimes the way the crapshoot goes, right, man?
Yeah, yeah.
And then also the flip of the coin, the fight with Fundora, which actually was a great fight. That fight was excellent. I mean, the back and forth, the way that you guys were going, the way that you guys matched up, even though physically there was so many crazy dimensions between you two. Fantastic fight. He ends up pulling away. Your face swelled in a way that it never really has before, right? That's something that was new. Yeah. And well, I want to ask you about that too, but. And then you see where he's at now. Yeah. And you were like right there. Yeah. So your two losses, one guy's literally the undisputed champion, 154, was a fantastic fighter in Charlo. And then Fundora is now
unified champion himself. Like, I mean, that was really right after your fight. It wasn't that much longer. You know, so it shows your caliber. But what I'm hearing from what you've been telling me about your amateur pedigree, from going to the Olympic Training Center, from people coming to watch you, you've been that guy. Are you still that guy?
Still that guy.
And why weren't you that guy when it was that time?
I can't call it, man. I feel like I was that guy during that time. You know, even with the Charlo fight, I was the one so eager to take that fight. You know, I was injured in camp. I had like a broken hand, fractured hand, and couldn't really, not to make any excuses. They always say that when they make an excuse. But
we call it reasons, not excuses, right?
Yeah. For that fight, people said like that fight was too soon, but you said you wanted it.
Yeah, I
wanted
it.
That fight.
And, you know, Gary was like, man, you know what? We could just pull out this fight, you know, because you're dealing with a lot. And, you know, we'll just postpone it or something like that. And I was like, nah, let's make this happen.
And that's the thing.
Too big of a card, man. It was all the 54s.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, when you're that young, it's not even really about the opponent. It's the chance to fight for a world championship. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I got the Cotto fight, it's like, you know, it was my first championship. Like, oh, Cotto. And I didn't even think about Cotto. I'm thinking about that it's a world championship. You know, like, you want that world championship. You want the shot at it. It don't matter who has it. It's like, you want to get that opportunity. So, of course, you don't want to pull out. You see it in front of you. You've been working all these years for it. You're like, oh, you could taste it, right? It's right there.
Yeah. But also, the champion, to your point, like, even when you fought Cotto wasn't Cotto yet. Like, he was gonna be that guy, but like, he wasn't that guy. It was still a first weight class. You know, he was a stud.
5 knockout wins and 5 defenses. Man.
Absolutely, but like people. What he is now.
But yeah, fame wise, he wasn't.
And same thing with Charlo. Like, you fighting Charlo, it's like, to you at that time, it's like, yeah, he's definitely good. But guess what? I'm good. He's just another guy like me. Yeah. But again, it's a championship opportunity. So all right. So that's I never knew that was like you were really pushing for that fight.
Yeah, I was pushing for it.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I want to go back a little bit though. Okay, we talked about you coming out of the amateurs. Talk about setbacks in the pros. All in all, your resume very good. You know, two losses, both to guys who wanted to become a unified champion. So you're right there, right? I mean, and everybody else, you've gotten some high quality wins. You've beaten some guys that have been world champions. You just didn't beat them when they were champions, like Jason Rosario's of the world and stuff like that, right? So when I look back at it, right, you got a solid resume, solid career. Everybody knows Erickson Lubin can fight. If you watch boxing, you know who Erickson Lubin is, right? If you could go back, obviously hindsight's 20/20, you know, and then we can't go back. That's why hindsight's 20/20. Yeah. Would you have waited for the Olympics?
No.
You don't regret nothing. Every move you made, you'd make it again.
I knew that answer. I knew just from talking just now. When you asked that, I was like, he's gonna say nah. And I respect that. I respect that. Yeah.
This idea of being of a certain class, and what I always think of, you know, back in the day, famous fighter, way before your time, a guy named Aaron Pryor. And he missed the Olympic trials in '76, right? Lost to Howard Davis. He goes, all these guys became rich and famous. He's like, I should have been there with Sugar Ray Leonard. I should have been there with Howard Davis. Should have been there with the Spinks brothers. And I wasn't considered in that class. I had to fight my way up to that class. And he was devastating. He had a big chip on his shoulder his whole career. This idea of, man, amateurs, I was right there. A lot of those guys of that class are the Shakur Stevensons, right? The Gervonta Davis, the guy that like, we fought the same, same Golden Gloves, same events. And they're, the class of boxing right now. How does it feel to know I'm there? Maybe everybody doesn't know it yet. But I'm with that class. How does that motivate you, man?
It motivates me a lot because, even coming out of the amateurs, there was guys like Jarrett Hurd. There was guys like Charlo. There was a lot of guys, Tony Harrison, and I was along that list. I was with those guys, and then like I watched a lot of those guys, like even the Julian Williams of those guys.
Albeit you're much younger.
Yeah, I was much younger than those guys too, and a lot of those guys has faded. They maybe not boxing no more, maybe, whatever. But I'm still here, and that motivates me. And I see the guys that I came up with that, maybe they came up a little bit after me. They're doing a lot of great things in boxing, like Shakur Stevenson, like Gervonta Davis and stuff like that. But just for me to still be here is just a blessing, man. It's a blessing, and I'm just one fight away from strapping up, and sky's the limit from there.
You're 29 years old. Speaking from painful experience, a lot of times that's your physical prime, man.
Yep.
People don't get,
Yep.
You and I talk about it, Chris, because you're a nutrition fitness guy. You talk about it all the time. You're like, dude, you get that man strength in your late 20s, early 30s. A lot of guys at 24, 25, they're fast or whatever they are, but they don't have that man strength yet. What I'm curious about is that how it feels? Do you feel like you're kind of coming into your prime at 29 years old?
Yeah, honestly, man, I don't feel no different from 21.
Yeah.
Like as far as physically, I feel the same way, man. I feel strong. I feel fast.
All right, I gotta ask you on top of that though. At 28, 29, I can just go by my experience. I also felt physically still primed, but the savagery in your mind is still there. When you're 21, there's a savagery. There's a conquest type of mentality. That at 28, 29, when you've made a lot of money, you're still physically there and you can compete because you're world class and you are world class, so you can compete. But is the savage inside you still the same? Is that savagery there? Like, be honest. Is this? Are you, that in the gym on fight night, you go into is the approach? I tell you, that's the adjective that needs to be used. It's literally a savage mindset.
Yeah, you can ask all the guys that's around me, from the younger guys to the guys that's my age and stuff like that, or even older. I'm like that, man. I be in the gym. I'm challenging those guys, and I'm trying to be the best. I'm always trying to win something.
Taking no
and I'm going
prisoners.
on a run with these guys. I'm telling them like straight up, like, we're about to race, bro. I don't give a fuck. We're racing, or who's gonna throw more punches? Like, I'm just like that, bro. I've always been like that. I got that mindset always.
You know what? And I believe you, because fighters will lie without even know they're lying. But I believe you for two reasons. And one, I literally saw today I saw it last week and then I saw it again today. You got put in the same room with your next opponent, Audra Holmes Jr., and that dog came out of you. That aggression came out of you. It just you guys were in the same room. Your auras were touching, and shit popped off. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But then also, you spoke about the gym, the culture in your gym. I know that gym you're in. I know those guys.
Yeah.
And what keeps a fighter young is staying competitive.
Yeah.
And not just on fight night. I mean everything. The most the guys who fight the longest are the guys who are the most competitive in everything they do. You look at a guy like Terrence Crawford. You can't walk by a ping pong table. That guy's not going to try and beat everybody in the room.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So now you're around all these young studs. Even you're kind of the old man on the block now for once. You used to be the young guy with all the older guys, and you were hanging because you were good. Now you're that guy, and you're the older guy, but you're still staying competitive. So that's a big point, because a lot of times fighters always say, "Are you really still hungry?" Yeah, I'm hungry. And they think they're hungry, but they're not hungry.
Well, there's a big chip missing, right?
Yeah.
The world championship.
Yeah, it's a big. Yeah, I need that.
Exactly.
Last question I have for you. Your opponent, 17-0, as it's mentioned, young kid, hungry. How do you basically announce to the boxing world you're back come May 10th at his expense?
Annihilate him. I've been in the ring with him before. He's on his high horse right now. He's 17-0. He's undefeated. You know, he got a promoter behind him and stuff
He's been
like
fighting
that.
at
He's
home.
fighting. He's fighting at home. He's fighting those guys that are handpicked. You know, I never had it easy. So like, I even told G-Man from the beginning. I was like, I don't want it easy. I want the guys with the good records so I can get there fast. I wanted to be world champion by the time the Olympics came up. I was racing that time. But this kid, he ain't never seen nothing like me. He seen me in the amateurs, but that ain't even me today. It's a difference.
Well,
You know, I'm much more experienced. My mind's different. I'm a grown man. I got kids now. I'm doing it with purpose. I'm ready to go break him up like I told him.
You said it with a smile on your face. May 10th, we're looking forward to an incredible fight. You talked about the G-Man, Gary Jonas, owner here, the man who has brought you to where you are. We're going to talk about him, your relationship with him when we come back. Welcome inside the ProBox TV studio. Boxing Scene today, very special edition, our May 10th fight from Kissimmee, Florida. A main event, Erickson Lubin taking on Adriel Holmes Jr. A fight, a dangerous one for a fighter who needs a comeback. Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, and the boss, Gary Jonas. Here at ProBox TV, you talk about 50-50 all-action fights. With this main event, I said it in the beginning. It's one of those where Erickson Lubin does need a comeback, does need the big win, does need to get over that hump, and you're putting against a 17-0 fighter who is very, very hungry. That's a fight a lot of promoters wouldn't make. You're not afraid of it. Why?
Well, let's be clear. The IBF mandated it.
Right.
So we didn't have any choice on them in the matter, number one. But, you know, they went down the list, and Xander Zayas, I can't even remember all the names. A number of very big names from number 2 down said no to the fight. Didn't want it. Whatever reason, I'm not going to say they were afraid of him. They didn't want the fight, so it went all the way down to Adriel Holmes. So then we're mandated to fight number 7. And at first, Erickson's reaction was disappointment. He wants all of the big fights. He felt that was almost an embarrassment. I said, Erickson, it's a mandatory. You have no choice. But I also told him, you've been out of the ring a year and a half. So, like, maybe this is a bit of a blessing, and not to understate Adriel Holmes, because he's 17-0, and you don't take anybody lightly at that level. Everybody's dangerous. But honestly, if I could have picked a fight that would have been an easier path for him, of the guys in the top 7, that actually turned out to be the guy that I thought was the best person for him, given that he was off 18 months.
Gary, we had the chance to speak to Erickson a little while ago, and he was telling us really from the beginning. You know, he was a well-known entity in the South Florida area in the amateurs. Had a lot of scouts looking at him. Had the option to go to the Olympics. Was at the Olympic Training Center, and he told a little story about you guys crossing paths. Not necessarily you and him crossing paths at first, but some people that were in contact with you. Can you elucidate that a little bit and how that panned out and how you guys actually came together?
Yeah, we were Iron Mike Productions at the time. So at the time we were partners with Mike Tyson, and we were looking for some really top young guys to sign. And we were told the guy is Erickson Lubin. He's over in Colorado Springs at the time with the Olympic team, and that the kid didn't want to go to the Olympics. It had to do with the headgear. The change and so on. And I think Erickson's the personality that he wanted to fight the best in the world, and he had been dominating the amateurs. He'd been beating the Cubans. So we heard this. We sent someone over there to kind of check it out and get word to them that we want to meet. And they flew literally from Colorado Springs to Deerfield, where we had the Mike Tyson gym. He came in. I mean, the first day he literally came in. We put some of the best 47s out there in front of him. Felix Diaz, gold medal winner, Udell Johnson, who was a top-ranked 154. We ran everybody at him from that stable, and I was like, he just put it on everyone. And it wasn't like it was the putting on everyone. They were getting back in shape, putting them on. Like at some point I said to these guys, could you please put it on this kid? Please, please. I really want to know what he's got.
Can we teach him a lesson, please?
You know that in sparring, sometimes you're getting work, and then sometimes you have to rile people up and bring out a real fight, even if it's sparring. And we did that. The kid was phenomenal. I mean, everybody was in awe. Mike Tyson was in awe. Johan Guzman was in the gym yelling, "Coño, coño." Like, he was just amazed. So the kid was everything that they thought he was. And as soon as we signed him on his 18th birthday, USA Today came out with a major article. They were very upset with Mike Tyson for pulling their gold medal hopes out of there, and so it made a lot of noise. And just so you guys understand, from day one, Erickson, every fight he fought, 4 rounds, 6 rounds, was on national TV. ESPN wanted him. Showtime wanted him. He was that guy. I think arguably there was more noise made about Erickson Lubin than any other amateur who's come out, you know, since then. So
that gives sort of context to why he was moved into a championship fight so fast, right? I mean, there was the constant push, the constant hype, the constant energy surrounding him. Obviously, everything in hindsight is 2020. As I told Erickson, looking back, what was the mentality for you? We know what the mentality was for Erickson. He's explaining to us going into that fight. When the fight comes up, what was the mentality for you? Because again, there is this push and this energy behind him constantly. All his fights on national TV, USA Today headlines from the moment he turns pro. You've seen him in the gym. You've seen what he's capable of. You've seen him obviously at this point winning and staying undefeated on the way to this title fight. What were you thinking going into the Charlo fight when it comes up, first of all?
Well, first of all, a promise was made. His only request to not go to the Olympics, because the Olympics were going to be another 3-4 years away. His only request is that my goal is to be in a championship fight before or just as the Olympics is coming off. So I want to be champion before I could have gotten the medal.
So he fast-tracked himself.
It was conditioned to signing and turning pro. And look, we could go back on that promise, but it's not cool to do so. But he had earned it. In his first 18 fights, he had demolished a lot of really good fighters. And I remember the co-main event of the Thurman Garcia fight at the Barclays, and he fought a guy that was a dangerous guy in Cota, and it was a dominant victory, and did it in front of the full house, and you couldn't deny that he wasn't ready, and all the noise was there. Everybody wanted to see it, so the opportunity came to fight Charlo, and do I have reservations? Would we have liked an easier champion at the time? That is the hard route, but this is a storybook situation, and the risk might have been worth the reward. But here's the story, the true story that most people don't know. I go to the Barclays Center 5 weeks before the fight. And Erickson's like my son. I can stare at him and I know exactly what he's thinking. I know how he looks. I understand him as soon as I look at him. And he was 190 pounds. And I looked at him, I grabbed him, I pulled him aside. I go, what the hell? What's going on with you? I know you're heavy. Yeah, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit. With all the fame and fortune that had been put on him, it's hard for a young guy to keep their head about themselves. All right, that's a double-edged sword. It takes a very special athlete to get that kind of attention and keep their head about themselves. He had already been over to PBC. He spent his first 2 years at Iron Mike, but then we brought him over to Al Heyman, and he was getting so much attention over at those shows, and it can ruin a young man or harm his perspective. So Erickson was starting not to train, right? He was starting to party a little bit. He was starting to be out there with a nightlife. And when he showed up 190 pounds, I knew exactly what was going on with him. But I'm in a car with him and his coach at the time, Jason Gallarza, and we're driving back to Jersey. And they say, hey, we've got something else to tell you. Oh, really? Not that you're just 40 some odd pounds overweight. What else? And they're like, well, I've got a hairline fracture in my hand. I said, okay, guys, we're going to cancel this fight. And the two of them went on to demand, implore that don't cancel it. We'll be ready. That the doctor said the hand will be healed by the time the fight goes off.
Yeah, if you don't use it.
Yeah.
Literally, we were there trying to figure out, it was probably 10 days before the fight is the first time he hit the bag.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
you can't hit anything if it's
no,
gonna
I
heal.
mean, it's malpractice. But they insisted. Remember, I'm the manager. I don't have the right to say, no, you're not fighting. Right. That's not my right.
Yeah.
So they insisted on doing it, and we all saw what happened, right? There were 17 people in his room the night before the fight. I try to say, Erickson, you got to get focused. There ain't 17 people in LeBron James's hotel room the night before a championship basketball game. I said, this is not how professionals behave.
And if there is, LeBron has 17 rooms, so it's
Right,
it's gonna be
exactly.
quiet.
But he's 21 years old, and everybody's on his you-know-what. And it's a hard situation. It requires a lot of discipline, and it wasn't there. And, to some degree, you've got to understand Erickson must have thought. And look, I'm no better. When I was 21, I think I was probably a bigger fuck-up than he is, or was at 21. So I'm not judging. It's just the journey, and it's just the facts of what happens to young athletes, and is that too much too soon? And in retrospect, the same year Gervonta won his belt at 21 and David Benavidez won his belt at 21. The same year. It was supposed to be the three of them that were of the youngest champions ever. So two of the three won. Lubin didn't. But in retrospect, I think one could say that they got much easier roads. They weren't fighting Charlo. So he had a much tougher road to go. And, in hindsight, I wish we had pulled him out of the fight and not done it. I don't think he was ready physically. I don't think he was ready mentally. But a promise is a promise. I'm a manager, and that situation just got carried away, and it went the direction it went. So
You mentioned that, as big of a mess up as he was, do you see him being different now? Because you said was.
No, let's go to phase two. Now, tremendously different.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot that happened between 21 years old, 22 years old,
And where he is
and
now.
29.
Right.
The next 7 years is very, very telling because there was an impact from that knockout. There was an impact from what might have been a difficult experience to swallow on that stage, right? That tests your mental fortitude, and at 22 years old, to get knocked out like that in front of everybody after the build-up, that's a tremendously difficult thing to try to overcome. And he went to a new coach. In hindsight, I don't think that was the best situation. I think one of the worst things about it all was that all the whispers is Erickson's chin okay? Is he chinny? Is he chinny? And that's hard. That's a hard tag to put on a fighter. You guys know this. When those whispers go out by the rest of the industry that you might be chinny, it's again, psychologically very challenging to live with. And here's a 22-year-old who's got to go into the ring now and go, maybe I have to fight the perfect fight. Maybe I have to be careful now. And I think we all saw a little bit of it, right? And there were a couple times where he got hit with something early in a fight and his legs kind of braced and looked for the ground. And everybody said, you see, he's chinny. I'll tell you a story later in this piece that illustrates my position on it. But for the moment, he had to contend with that. And I think he changed his style a little bit. He became a little more defensive in response to that. And, everyone will tell you who knows this kid, he's gifted offensively. I mean gifted at a level that you don't see very often. I've seen enough fighters now, and I don't remember seeing that level of gift in his offensive game. But now he thinks, okay, wait a second, I'm going to calm down and take it easy because that can happen. Let's be clear. He didn't get knocked out by Charlo by going at him. It wasn't a counterpunch. It wasn't reckless offensive behavior. It just happened. It was a bit of a fluke. He was caught cold in the first round. That can happen to anybody. So now we move forward, and now he's in a defensive style as a fighter, and he's not quite the same guy. And as good as he is, he could just change his style and come out and beat people and beat some of the best. And he just kept going. And he kept winning, and he kept winning. But everybody knew he wasn't winning the same way. Something was a little bit not quite the same. And who can argue with it? If the position of the coach and Erickson, no, it's, higher levels. We've got to fight this way now. It's not the same. I just can't walk in and knock people out. Then you kind of say, okay. But the reality is that I never felt like Erickson was living the life. I don't, and I don't blame him. He's young. I would have been worse than him. But the reality is that you made a choice to turn pro early. You made a choice to do this the right way. And I always try to tell him, look, you can be like Broner, or you can be like Mike. And I don't mean Mike Tyson, I mean Mike Jordan. I mean, that's this commercial, be like Mike. And you always try to tell these young athletes, like, I know there's a lot going on around you, but if you're not going to put the work in that Magic did, that Michael did, that Kobe did, if there's one lesson for all these top athletes when they turn pro is to understand, is that talent alone will never, ever, ever do it. And if you don't bring the work ethic, the dedication, the focus, if you don't live the life, then you're in trouble. And as a boxer, it's worse.
The idea, you keep saying, I would have been worse at 21 than he was at 21 for sure. You can be a great entrepreneur in your 40s. It's hard to explain to a boxer that, hey, the window is this big. Like, I can throw away 4 years and be an attorney in my 30s. There are a lot of jobs that you can do very, very well right up into your 60s. Boxing is not one of them. And is it a hard thing as an older manager, as an older figure, period, to explain to someone in that position?
Yeah, we butt heads all the time. I tried. And to use the analogy I just gave you, Erickson had become good friends with Broner and a certain crowd. And there was a lot of spending, a lot of partying, and a lot of living life the wrong way. And again, I tried as best I could, to the point where we became estranged. Like, Erickson and I wouldn't talk for years because I just didn't approve, and I was always complaining to him and bitching and moaning to him, to the point where he didn't want me around anymore. And I was still involved with PBC in helping to make his fights, but I was not involved with his team or him because the relationship was toxic. So, there's nothing more we can say about that. For 7 years, I was out of his corner and not involved in his career. And jokingly, he used to block my son Daniel. My son Daniel loved Erickson. He idolized him. He would follow him around social media and want to know what he was doing when he was doing it. And they used to block Daniel. And poor Daniel would come in and he'd have that little look on his face because he knew he was being blocked. And he was being blocked because he would tell his father if Erickson was doing shitty stuff out there. So that's how much it was.
Those videos were public, so.
Yeah. So it was definitely a thing, and we were, estranged for probably 7 years until post the Fundora fight.
What's the biggest difference now between Erickson now and Erickson then?
He got it. He finally got it. I mean, he grew up. He's a man. He's not a kid anymore. I think he also realized, like, he's tired of he's tired of the underachievement. He's tired of not being the guy he was supposed to be. I think after years of it and the underachievement, I think he probably thought back to all the scraps he and I had and said to himself, I think I get it now. I know what he was trying to say. And it takes a while for you to come to that conclusion. And then he came to me, and we're talking about 27 years old. He came to me after the Fundora fight. And, I wanted to help him. Like, I felt terrible watching that. I was like, what has happened to him? Just to know that he would stand in front of Fundora and trade, it's not him. The guy was on rails early in his career. He had tremendous legs. Why was he standing stationary with a guy who was limited? Fundora's a great fighter, but there is a way to fight him that you're playing to his advantages, and Lubin did exactly that. And then to see what happened with him, it was just, I watched it at home on TV, and it bothered the hell out of me. So he did reach out to me. We kind of started talking again, and it really was, what do you think it was? It was like, okay, so do we get it now? Are we ready to get serious? Are we going to get this thing done? So that's when it started. And he is changed now. He is serious, and that happens. Some people it takes longer than others. Should it have happened earlier? In my opinion, yeah. Has it happened in time at 29 years old? Is he ready to go? Absolutely.
We will get his opinion on that and other things. We will bring in Erickson Lubin himself alongside the boss, Gary Jonas, right here on Boxing Scene Today. Stay with us. Welcome into the ProBox TV studios. Boxing Scene Today, a very special episode. Why? We're discussing not just May 10th, not just our card right here on ProBox TV in Kissimmee, Florida, not just a main event with Erickson Lubin taking on Ardriel Holmes Jr. It's about a relationship between Gary Jonas and Erickson Lubin, of course, fighting in our main event. In studio, Jimmy Smith alongside the champ, Chris Algieri, and, of course, the boss, Gary Jonas, and Erickson Lubin. Boss, I got to ask you right now, we have talked about the ups and downs of the career of Erickson Lubin. Right now, this opportunity at 29 years old, what do you think? What do you think about the timing of this opportunity on ProBox TV for him?
I think the timing's great. I think that we've talked about some of the things in the past, but right now, Erickson, I've never seen Erickson in camp for 6 months before in my life. Erickson's been in Plant City where we know it's not just a camp, but it's like an intensive. And he's been there committed to being there, and so he got into shape really the right way. And so his mind's right. His mind is there. He knows now. It's not, talent isn't the only thing. You got to mix his talent with his hard work. He's grown up. He understands that now, and that's what makes Erickson the most dangerous, because in all the years I've had him, he's probably can be guilty of thinking just showing up with talent alone would do it. So this version of Erickson at 29 years old, in his prime, that's a scary version.
You've heard his comments about that nature of talent and work ethic and the ups and downs of your career. What are your thoughts on it, man, when you think about the timing and what you've been through now?
Well, you know, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So, you know, I just learned that I can do both and just be pretty much unstoppable. So I just applied myself to working hard and being around boxing only, and you know, living right and keeping my head straight. And I think it'll all show on May 10th, the progression that I've made in my life and in my career.
Was there a time or a fight where it clicked? Was there a moment it clicked? Was there an experience that made it click? Was it about a particular loss or particular moment where, once again, you decided to put it all together?
Maybe around the Fundora fight, you know. I think it was the moment they threw in the towel, I started thinking, like, damn, like, is it over with for me? And I just started to think, and you know, every time something goes bad in my life or in the ring or anything, I'm quick to call G-Man. I'm like, yo, G, like, I'm just getting advice from him, and we sat down, we went to we watched the fight, and he just gave me advice, and, you know, I applied it to my everyday living in my life.
G-Man, I like that. I'm going to use that right now. G-Man. Now,
That's a name from now on.
I'm going to go back to something that you said when last segment. And I don't take any offense by me saying this, but it was going around that Erickson was a little shinny. You know, he got stopped in the Charlo fight very early on because he got caught with a big shot. He obviously was defeated when the towel was thrown against Fundora. And you said that you had a moment in a discussion with him where that was walked out.
Yeah.
Can you tell what happened there?
Well, to be specific, so after the Charlo fight, on 3 or 4 occasions, Erickson would get hit with some random shot early in the fight. And for those who watch Erickson's career, you guys all know what I'm about to tell you. He had this same reaction where his legs would brace for a second, and he'd look for the ground. And then he'd kind of gather himself. In 2-3 seconds, he'd gather himself, and he was fine. He recovered, and it didn't play out the rest of the fight. But people thought, oh, he's chinny. And I think that was more of an anxious reaction from a young man who was questioning himself. Was he chinny? Because that gets in the back of your head. So that was more PTSD than it was the actual that he was chinny. Because, and I felt like, how do I restore his confidence? How do I get him back to being confident? Because the more confident he would be in his chin, the more aggressive he'll go back to his offensive style, which is what makes him special. So he came over that night to hang out after the Fundora fight. And I said, hey, I want to watch a fight with you. He said, all right, let's watch a fight. And I put the Fundora fight on. Now,
Wait, how soon after the fight was this?
maybe 2 weeks.
That's tough. As a very short period of time to go back and
No,
watch.
he was healed up, so it had to be about 6 weeks. Let's say it was 6 weeks, but it wasn't
Even
that far after. Yeah.
After a loss, I don't want to watch a fight for 6 years.
Right.
Let alone 6 weeks.
And he didn't want to watch it. As soon as I put it on, he looked at me like, "You're a dick."
Yeah,
And I was like,
that's the response that
there's a method to the madness. Just bear with me and watch this fight. So you could see him uncomfortable having to make him watch this. At some point in time, I didn't say a word to him. We're just watching and watching. And then as soon as I see the towel fly in, I press pause. And he's like, "What the fuck, man?" I said, "No, you know what? I have this thing. I'm looking at this fight." I said, "You know the brother whose head's all swollen up like that?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "That motherfucker's got a chin." And he just kind of looked at me like, "That's your takeaway?" I said, "Yeah, that's my takeaway." "Dude, had to hit you with the kitchen sink. Your head's about to explode. He can't put you down. They had to throw in a towel. I mean, if that guy doesn't have a chin, I don't know what's what." So he kind of looked at me, and it dawned on him what I was saying. And he looked at the screen, and he went, "Yeah, I got a fucking chin." And it was an important moment. It was just therapy. I needed him to see it that way. Because believe it or not, he didn't even see it that way until we watched it that way. That didn't dawn on him. So it's like we put that in his head, and then we went on to talk about the next fight that he was going to fight, and that to be more aggressive. That I felt that I had been out of his career for a while, maybe 4 or 5 years, because we didn't see eye to eye with his team, and I didn't like the way he was doing what he did. And we've always been like that. Like, if I don't like it, I won't tell him what he wants to hear. I'll just walk away if I don't like what he's doing. So when he came to see me, he kind of knows that. That's always been the issue between he and I. And then I just talked to him about it. I said, "You ready to really put the effort in and live the life? Because besides that, that's not you. You wouldn't go stand in front of a guy who, that's the way he fights. That's not you. Like, something's still wrong, and I believe it's that you don't live the life, that you have developed bad habits from the time everybody was on you know what, and that those bad habits, we got to slap them out of you." Now, the Arias fight was the Arias fight, and I'm going to bring this full circle. The Arias fight was a good performance, but Arias is not in his league. Let's be honest. So
Not in his league, but he's normally a guy who goes the distance. He's gone the distance with Danny Jacobs. You know, he's Gabe Rosado. He's fought high level guys, but always makes to the end.
And to be honest with you, it might have gone the distance, but Arias made a mistake. Arias did some dirty stuff in the fight, punched him in the back of the head, grabbed him from behind, punched him in the back of the head. And for that moment, Erickson got pissed off. And guess what happened? Old Erickson showed up. Old Erickson started walking him down with that mean look on his face. And Erickson went, "Whoop, whoop, whoop." And Arias knew it. Arias said, "Oh, shit, I fucked up." And within a round of that, it was over. So there's that mentality when Erickson got angry enough to just let his offense fly and let him, who he is, go. And that was it. The fight was over. So, but then we, right away, get him an opportunity to fight on the Canelo undercard. And PBC doesn't put guys on 3 months later.
No.
Right?
No.
3 months later, he gets onto the Canelo undercard, and I'm excited. He's fighting Ramos, big stage. I think I got him right, and I think this is going to be catapult him back into his opportunity. And he fights. He fights a careful fight, and he wins the fight. Could have been a draw. It was argued. It was close. I don't think both fighters didn't perform well that night. And my only comment to him is that I've always been about this. It's not just how you win. If I'm helping him as his businessman, it's not just that you won or not. It's how you win. And you want to wow the crowd, be the best offensive fighter in boxing that I think he can be, at least in his weight class, and let them see that. Wow the crowd. Win the crowd over. And that was the opposite performance. And again, had an argument with his team, because I felt that was a bad performance, and I won't tell him what he wants to hear. And at that point in time, we didn't talk for another 6 months, 9 months. It was parted ways again. And really, but the end is I still didn't believe that he was doing everything he needed to do. He left that coach, and he gave up some of his environment. He called me. We got together maybe a year later, and he said, I've been thinking about it. And I know I haven't been doing things the right way. And there's no time. Like, we got to get this done now. So it was almost his way of saying, okay, I'm going to do it your way. I'm 29, this is my prime, I surrender, your way. I said, okay, well, if you really mean that, pack your bag and go to Plant City. And that was a while ago. And he's been doing everything right since then. So I've always wanted him to just win. I want him to be happy, I want him to be successful. I want him to have everything that life can give you. But you're never going to get there if you don't do it the right way. And I've always tried to teach him what the right way is. And again, it's a hard environment for a young man with all that fame and fortune and money and time on his hands to accomplish that and get that lesson. So I think he's finally there. I mean, I can let him speak for himself, but I think he's there.
How has it felt turning that corner? A lot of people tell me that when you're in camp, you're 100% focused, and you realize, man, I'm really good at this, or I really have joy again for this process. How has that camp, as he says, long camp, tough camp, Plant City, how has that felt for you?
It's been great. It's been great. Me and Mark Foray, we click very well. You know, he's gotten to my mindset. He's helped me out with my mindset and stuff like that. Got me more aggressive again. You know, I've always been an aggressive fighter. But he's implementing that into our style and in our game plan, especially with this fight coming up. And I just feel like it was important that I made a change in my environment. The change in my environment it'll translate into the ring. So, you know, just living the right way, living clean and healthy, and not falling into temptation and all that type of stuff it's been great, and it'll translate May 10th.
When he talked about this idea of you get fouled, you get hurt, someone's dirty, and you decide to turn it on and get him out of there. The all-time greats, and obviously Boss talks about guys like Michael Jordan, they almost decide to win. Like Kobe was like, all right, this is a close game, and then he would decide to put 30 on you. He just did it. That mental click. Does that feel like something you have now that's going to be available in this fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going into this fight right here with a mindset of just annihilating this dude and dominating him. Not just to go in there and come out with a win. You know, I'm going in there to wow the crowd and give my hometown fans, you know, they never had me headline a show at home. So this is big for me. This is probably my most important fight, because I'm at this stage where, you know, I started to understand that there's a window. Like, when I was younger, I never thought about that window and when it closes and stuff like that. I'm thinking I have 20 years plus, you know, 10 years plus. It feels so far. But now that I understand that and I could see that things may change in boxing outside the ring, it definitely got me more motivated, more focused, more on top of my game. So I'm looking to definitely make a statement on May 10th.
When it comes to this idea of you know, it's a cliche, but it's true. The pressure breaks pipes. It also makes diamonds. Also, what pressure level do you want on a guy like Erickson coming into this fight? I was like, hey, and I called it the opening of the show a crossroads fight. You heard me say that, where your career can go one way or it can go the other. How much do you want on the shoulders of a fighter who has a big fight coming? Do you want them to understand the gravity of it, or do you want to keep them away from the gravity of it? What's your philosophy on that?
No, look, he's been under tremendous pressure his whole career from the day he turned pro. He's acclimated to that, and he's had great success under pressure. Against Cota, co-main to Thurman and Garcia, full house. There's not more pressure than that. So he's had success under pressure as well. So no, he needs pressure. If he doesn't have pressure, then he can get complacent. So we wanted this in Orlando, And I want to, thank Al Heyman, PBC, Louis DeCubas, because he's still a PBC fighter. They just made a concession this time around because they knew we were able to put it on and do it. The timing was that we could put it on and we could do it in Orlando, and they let it happen. But my real motive is that I know he's a proud guy, and I know if I want to bring out the best of him, make him do it in front of his hometown. Make him the main event and put all that on him, because that's what gets him focused. And like, even the guys know that since we announced that fight and since we did that media workout, like, it's getting real, and he's getting that, his intensity levels, his focus is changing. He's getting meaner. We were in the car in Vegas on our way to the media workout, and we were having a conversation about something that was slightly controversial in our own little world. And Lubin was like, "Nah, man, I don't want to do that. He didn't want to. It's just something private between us that he didn't want to be controversial." And I kind of got into him, and I said, "Man, don't. I don't. I need that other guy." So, but bringing Ardrell Holmes was to get that other guy, and so we were on our way to that. And as soon as we got there, and suddenly peace and love, good vibes, Erickson gets Ardrell Holmes and starts to say stuff that Erickson don't like, boom. He flips that switch like he did in the Arias fight. So it's always like one of these things where I'm always trying to flip that switch on him. And I knew being in Orlando would do that. So he's good with the pressure.
Speaking of, that incident and flipping the switch, the pressure that's on you, you brought up the Arias fight where you got mad and the old hammer came back. How much of what you're going to base your performance on is that it's the pressure of fighting at home and putting on because you're proud, to actual Ardrell Holmes, a guy that you have a history with and who literally says things that you didn't like? So how much is that personal go and with the professional part of it, where it's like, all right, I'm fighting my homecoming. It doesn't matter who I'm fighting. I got to put out for my city. Versus, nah, this dude needs to get broke up.
To me, there's no pressure on either end. There's no pressure on me fighting at home. There's no pressure on me fighting this opponent, him getting under my skin. There's pressure on, like, me fulfilling my goals and becoming a world champion and being that guy in boxing. Because I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for anything else. I'm doing it to be that guy in boxing. I want to be that guy.
So it's bigger than this fight.
Yeah, it's bigger than this, man. This fight's important. I feel like every fight's important, but the pressure I have on myself is what drives me. It drives me even more to go ahead and win a world title, because I know, this is the for the mandatory spot right here. So I know after this, then, I can't be denied. I can't be denied for any title fight. I know it could be either Murtazaliev. I know it could be either Fundora or, maybe Charlo if he comes back. I know he's a champion in recess with the WBA. So that's the type of pressure I put on myself. Not too much of the home crowd. I'm not too worried about that. We got people to handle the tickets and handle all that other stuff. That's not my job. My job is to go in there and perform. I make the ring my home.
Last question I have for you.
Wait, sorry, real quick, Jimmy. G-Man, I like that answer. Do you like that answer? 'Cause
Yeah.
that's a fighter's answer.
I love that answer. And he didn't have to say it.
No.
Like, meaning, good he said it here on camera.
Right, no, it was genuine.
But I've seen it now, and I know what's coming. And I do believe he's going to put on a huge performance that night. He's not taking this guy lightly, because it's not about this guy. It's about how pissed off he is and fed up that he hasn't fulfilled his potential.
It's prophecy, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's finally pissed off about it. So it's nothing to do with Ardrell. And he's just poor guy in the way.
Yeah, he's definitely in the way. He's in the way. I'm going to run him over.
With all you've been through, not just in the fight world as an entrepreneur, but with a Erickson Lubin, what does it mean to you for him to reach his ceiling, to hit that potential that you saw in the beginning, to have the rest of the boxing world see that? What does that mean to you?
That's probably the most important thing for me in boxing, to be honest with you. I mean, he's the first, real star or super prospect that I signed. And so, again, it seems like an underachievement for me if he doesn't get there, right? As much as it feels like it's for him, then what does it say about me? And sometimes we've had some beefs where I've made it very clear, like, I need to win. Like, you don't bring me down. You don't make me lose. We need to win. You need to win or I don't win. I'm dependent on you doing your job. So let's go. Get your fucking job done so we can win, because we don't want to... Failing? Fuck failing. So that's not an option. And he gets it now. He's there. And it takes, sometimes in life, it takes getting towards the end where you realize it. In his mind, he beat Ramos. Why hasn't he fought since? What happened? And I just went like this. I didn't say a word because we had words after the fight. And everything I said was, you may have won, but your stock dropped because of the way you won. And then 1 year later, he realized, son of a bitch, that big white dude was right again. And now you got to come down and sit down with me and go, okay, so obviously I'm not doing it the right way. And there's your moment. For all of us in life, there's a crossroads where you come to where you really finally figure out, I'm doing something wrong. Pain creates change. Erickson not being where he's at and watching Gervonta and watching Shakur and watching all his contemporaries be where they're at, it finally pissed him off enough for him to snap out of the bad habits, get his ass to Plant City, get his head right, and listen, I've seen it, so I know where we're at, but talk is cheap. Let's just see what happens May 10th, and then I believe everybody's going to be like, uh-oh, he's back. That's the guy. And then Murtalezev. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, but it all starts May 10th. That's right, the return of Erickson Lubin, our main event, Kissimmee, Florida, right here on ProBox TV. Check it out and find out why millions are watching.